at Rock and Jim magazine. You can subscribe to their email. I recommend you subscribe to their magazine, but they will send you emails. This is Anne Bronte, I suppose is how it's pronounced, and her rock collection. Um, if you go and check out this, just go to rock, the letter N, gem.com, and you can look this up. Pretty interesting. There's some caves here. This is a cavern in Derbyshire, England. And this is a tour that people go on. They can see all kinds of formations inside the cave, geology, and things like this. This Anne Bronte was a famous writer, and she was a very powerful speaker. She had very strong viewpoints. She promoted gender equality, even though she died shy of her 30th birthday as early as 1849. There's been a lot of studies on her in general, on her writings, and also lately on her collection. It primarily has agates, carnelias, and obsidians, and there has been some papers written on her. And this Jaspers, who's actually a person, that's not a pun on Jaspers, for the University of Aberdeen's Department of English Study of Bronte, kept noting references to her just how brilliant she was for not only the way she wrote, her controversial works, her depiction of alcoholism, adultery, and domestic abuse was considered unwholesome topics for women authors, but that's what made her famous. She also had a wonderful collection of gemstones. Some of the gemstones were just recently identified, and there's a book called The Tenant of Wildfell Hall directly references the science in the book, which was one of the books she was interested, and it identifies the elements of barium, calcium, magnesium, and other minerals that she had in her collection. Her collection was very systematically described and fully identified, and this shows that she was very scientifically minded. Also, her collection is at the Bronte Personage Museum, and you can see some of it there. In the article that I have cited from Rock and Jim, you can see a picture of her here. This was probably drawn by her sister, and there's a study of her collection of stones that was published in April 2022, and it was a collaboration, Anne Bronte and Geology, a study of her collection of stones, and it was volume 47, issue 2 of the peer-reviewed journal Bronte Studies and Gazette. So if you don't follow her, you can do more research on this if you want to find out more about it, but she was a renowned novelist. She was one of 3 famous sisters. She had detailed scientific analysis of her collection, and stones revealed that she was a skilled collector with an active interest in geology. It was a meaningful collection, and it was analyzed by a technique of Raman quartz spectrographic, which was discovered in 1928 by physicist C.V. Raman, the first Asian to receive a Nobel Prize. It is a non-destructive analysis using scattered light to measure vibrational energy modes, whereas conventional spectroscopic uses differences in wavelengths emitted and transmitted from reflective light to provide higher and more specific degrees of clarity. So it's been analyzed some time ago, apparently. Again, she wasn't just combing the beaches there. She had some of her samples were from all over. She had agates that were identified. some was flowstone, and also a red obsidian that was not found within the United Kingdom, so possibly came from another country. Also, they found that she had other stones that were unusual, and they were collected for their geological value. And they believe that some of them might be collected from a cave. The flowstone, as you see in this cavern picture here, are sheet-like deposits of calcite or other carbonate materials that formed while the water flows down the walls or drips down the walls to the floors of the cave. Some of these caves were near where her family might have visited. It was part of her collection. Again, most of it was rounded carnelias, about less than an inch across, ranging from pale orange to dark red. 3 more angular red stones were found and for the first time identified as mahogany. That is put in there a couple times. Now, the flowstone that she had usually forms like a stalagmite or a stalactite inside of caves, but her piece had no rings or banding. It did have a rind on its exterior, some sort of a rind, like one coating, ribbon-like folds terminating at each, and it had a cut surface. Calcite is soft, so it could have been cut at that time with a saw, some type of tool that was available at that time. It could have been purchased from a half a dozen lapidary shops that were operating near Scarborough when she was a governess, or it could have been a souvenir from her sister. A postcard by a family friend, Ellen Nessie, announced how her and Charlotte were very much pleased with going through the caverns of Castleton and Peak Cavern in July 1845. Now, the agates and jaspers could have been found all over. She had 3 large agates, a small white agate with concentric orange banding, large quartz-rich pebbles classified as carnelias or jaspers. Some of the agates have been broken to show the haggard or uneven surface. Some have been cut and reveal a polished surface with a high level of finish. So somebody had to have the skills to do this way back then, before 1850. So who knows where those stones were cut and polished, but some of these were local and some of them were not. Also, they found another agate that had an internal tube that looked like could be a skeleton of a fossilized sponge. And then they have a quote here from her. It says, "If you would have your son to walk honorably through the world, you must not attempt to clear the stones from his path, but teach him to walk firmly over them. Not insist on leading him by the hand, but let him go alone." And she wrote that shortly before she passed in 1848. The article goes on to say that she was well ahead of her time. She had a manuscript of scientific ideas where she did talk about geology in some of her writings, and she is celebrated. And the story was written by L.A. Sokolowski, if you want to check that out. The next story that we have is about Cornwall, England, and its U.S. impact. Again, another wonderful thing that was emailed to me from Rock and Jim magazine. You can check this out. Go to rock, letter N, jim.com, and you can read the article in its entirety. But they have some nice pictures here of some mines that are tunneled out. This is one of many tunnels. Now, when they discovered these minerals in England, it was primarily tin and copper. They utilized German miners. These German miners were brought to England to help. There was a lot of farmers and stuff like that. They needed machinery and things like that. And Germany had about close to 900 years of mining experience. So these folks were very, very useful in helping them gather the black tin oxide from the rocks and streams, but the mining had to be done. So the German miners came. They were called Cousin Jacks, And the reason they called him Cousin Jack, it seems that a lot of these miners, or some of them, had a cousin Jack who was a miner back home. So the term just kind of stuck, and that was what they were known for. The work was really hard. They didn't have mechanical equipment back at this time. The water had to be wheeled out by water wheels or lifted by hand. Um, Finally, gunpowder was introduced, black powder, things like this, but it was dangerous to light it, and the crushing of the ore was crude. They usually would use a animal, a large boulder, to crush it up, or even hammers could be used. But the demand of copper and tin increased because of the wealth in England. The 18th century was coming closer to the 19th century, so machinery needed to be increased in its technology and ability to pump water. The cousin jacks in the early 1840s helped very much with the production of the great copper deposits also in northern Michigan. And you can see here, if you're on the video, the 19th century siderite quartz and chalcopyrite specimen from the Ridgeruth St. Day district in Cornwall. So you can check that out. That specimen would be really something else if you could have it. One of the ways they would crack the rock before they got gunpowder and all of that is they would just heat the rock with a lot of fire and then throw water on it. With this could be very dangerous because there's noxious fumes. The lives of the miners was very short, but gunpowder in the 9th century was attributed to the Chinese alchemists. They used it for fireworks and things like that, and it was utilized for blowing up the rocks, but it was very dangerous because they didn't have a way to light it. They tried to make a trail, they tried to make fuses out of various different materials, but a lot of times people would get killed or maimed. But then an English inventor named Brickford invented the Brickford fuse in 1831. About a foot long of this cord could be used to give them about 30 seconds. They added a little layer of tar to it to keep the water from damaging it, to make it work through that. And that really helped a lot. Then pumps were used by these German miners. They came up with some better pumps. They used horse swims, which were real buckets on a rope, and that helped. And then finally, an Englishman, Thomas Savery, was the miner's friend, the steam pump. The steam pump could lift water out of the mines using a complicated system of pressure and vacuum. It wasn't much better than a water wheel, but at least it could be done with mechanical energy instead of manpower. So they could push the water about 30 feet, and they resolved this problem with this new pump, the Newcomen engine. It was more powerful steam engine and a more powerful pump, and it removed the water from 300 feet up. That really helped. And then they could do it in sections and move 300 feet here and then 300 feet there. Also, the walking beam engine, this looks a lot like the oil pumps. If you've ever seen the oil pumps out in oil areas of Texas or California or any other area that has oil pumps, it has that single lever that pumps the beam. It goes back and forth and pumps the pump up and down. Here you can see a picture of two of these steam pumps that are using a rod to go up and down. They could pump the water out. They found too that these miners were having a lot of health problems. They were dying very early from lung issues and tiredness. They had to climb in and out of the mine. I thought there was a picture of them climbing out of the mine. They had to climb in and out of the mine. I don't, maybe there's a picture somewhere else. But on these stairs, very hard work after the long day underground. Well, they found a way that these guys could actually use the pumps to climb up. So if they had one pump, they'd put shelves every so often, and they would just let the pump carry them up to one pump, jump off, wait for it to go down, get on the next little paddle and go up. Or if there was two, they could go up even quicker by While one was going up, they wait for this one because it had gone down, jump on that one, it goes up, and then vice versa. They could get up very quickly, but unfortunately, sometimes these would break and they would die. So they had to find better ways of doing that instead of going up and down the downstrokes of these pumps. You can see here a sample of the world's finest lyroconite. Came from the mines of Cornwall. This is the black tin that we talked about. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's Liroconite. If you want to look that up, there's a little specimen right there. The mining from this region of Cornwall, England, the Cousin Jacks, they did move on to a lot to help with the hard rock mining in America. And this article tells us that there is a wonderful specimens that you can admire today at different museums or online. Some of them we've looked at today. Gives the credit to Bob Jones for writing this for the Rock and Gem magazine. I recommend you look this up and read it in its entirety. I've just given you an overview of the information and what I know and what I've read. Now there's also a legend of giants. This is between Ireland and England. Again, our friends at Rock and Gem. You can look this up. Finn McCool's and the Giant's Causeway. You can see these beautiful stones stacked up here. These gave way to the fable, I guess you could say, history that the Giant's Causeway was between the Scottish Isle of Staffa to Great Britain. And strangely enough, there's some of these stones here in Great Britain too. You can see them stacked up. These are columns of basalt. It is a stairway of basalt columns that stretch into the sea all the way to Scotland from that area. So you can check it out. The legend was the giants built these to be able to fight, but once they got there, this other mythical person, Oonagh, Oonagh, came up with a story. She had a baby in the back. She dressed him up, and she made a bunch of cakes for him, like pancakes or griddle cakes. And she put chunks of iron in one, and the other she didn't. And when she gave the giant the iron, he broke a tooth. And she gave some to the baby, and the baby ate it no problem. But of course, she gave him the one that didn't have iron. So when he found out how tough this baby was, realized how big and giant it was going to be, he decided to destroy the bridge so that he wouldn't get his butt whipped. So the Isle of Man is located in the Irish Sea, approximately 162 miles from either location of the story. So this was much more than a bridge. Definitely, this is just a fable. You can climb to the basalt columns at the Giant's Causeway. These hexagonal patterns caused when this basalt cooled on the surface. It's low in silica, rich in iron and magnesium. They go deep down into the earth, and as this molten lava at the time cooled, it makes these beautiful formations that are quite interesting. They have 4, 5, 7, or even 8 sides, but not always 6. And these columns are pretty cool. It says that it is believed that the process is accelerated by the presence of water. Not all these columns are the same. Some of them are smaller, as large as 9 feet, or smaller than an inch in diameter, and some are as high as 90 feet tall. The Giant's Causeway and the Fingal's Cave are all locations that you can go visit if you want. There is some interesting information on how to go visit this. The Rolling Green Hills from Northern Ireland on the drive from Belfast to the Giant's Causeway. Quite beautiful countryside there. There is a visitor center that was opened in 2012. There's a motorized tram that is open that will take you to this area to see the cliffs to the sea. and there's one-way or two-way tickets. It is a natural wonder. It is protected. There's approximately 40,000 interlocking basalt columns that cover almost 173 acres. They're range up to 40 feet high. These pedestals covered all over the area. There's a lot of tourists. If you go in the summer months, it's going to be the most popular. And it says that the tram was upward to 45 minutes in both directions. So there's also Fingal's Cave on the Isle of Staffa, if I'm saying that right, or Staffa, Staffa. It's a Norse meaning pillar island, which it definitely is. There's a cave there that you can see that's filled with these pillars. There's a picture here that I'm showing on the website if you look it up at rockandjim.com. And the photo is attributed to Love Scotland page on Facebook, so you could go there if you want. They have about 100,000 tourists a year. It got its name from Finn McCool, and it means white stranger, the original name, Benetton Donner, who was thought to reside there. And it opens directly to the ocean, made up of basalt columns as high as 72 feet high. The cave is 270 feet deep and 40 feet wide. The island covers 82 acres, mostly made up of basalt columns. Yeah, very beautiful. Check it out. They have what to expect if you want to go, the rides, and then they review it as a fact or fiction for this whole story. But check it out. It was written by Sue Eyre. It's Eyre, and a wonderful story. So I recommend, if you're interested in that, check it out. One last story before we close. Another geology, rock and mineral story from our friends at Rock and Jim, exploring the Cornwallis Cave. This is a U.S. cave. It looks like it was handmade, hand dug. Was kind of square at the entryway. This was dug out apparently during the American Civil War, and timbers were put there to expand it, according to David Hawk. This is a Colonial National Historical Park. That's what it's called. And they hid explosives, munitions, artillery, things like that. It's part of the Virginia history books. You can read about this, but it does have a lot of fossilized shells. Carbonites and quartz mostly are there. There are layers of sandstone that are filled with these old fossilized shells, and other types of creatures might be found there, but mostly shells. It is part of the National Park Service. It is 40 feet in length. Most of the cave can't be entered, so yeah, that's kind of a bummer. But I believe part of it you can go. There are a bunch of features that you can find out about. Let's see, there's a sinkhole complex in the area. The U.S. Clean Water Act and some Commonwealth Virginia regulations are what kind of protect this area. They're no more than 10 to 15 feet in depth for these sinkholes, mostly mud, but there's a layer of overlaying silk and clay. Ponds are karst features that form through the dissolution of carbonate shell marl deposits that are from the early days, and that's what comprises part of the Cornwallis Caves. They are also part of the Windsor Formation and part of the epic Yorktown Formation, one of the most predominant formations throughout the eastern Virginia area. Consists of shelly layers, sands that date, they think, millions or billions of years, and they feel that that's where it came from. If you follow Interstate 95, then you're headed the right way. There is metamorphic and igneous rock bedrock that meets the sandy outwash plain, so this is up on top of that for however deep it is as you go inland. Some of the things that might be found there are scaropods, coral sponges, marine worms, and gastropods. and other types of creatures, crustaceans, barnacles, invertebrate fossils, and other things are found within the Cornwallis Caves. It owes its structural integrity to being comprised of cross-bedded sandstone cemented by salt spray from the New York River. 90% is carbonate, the rest is clay, mineral, quartz, and iron oxides that cements the sediments together. There is some cross stratification. There are similar deposits in the area. If you want to go look other areas, there might be some areas that you could collect. I'm not sure. You have to look into that. The final campaign of 1781 brought about the siege of Yorktown, Virginia, the surrender of British forces, and the end of the American Revolution, preserved at the Colonial National Historical Park. And there's a picture there that's courtesy of the national park that shows you where that is. And there's more on the geology here if you want to go in a little bit deeper. These storms that come through and hurricanes such as Hurricane Isabel cause more damage and erosion to the area. So yeah, who knows how long it will last. It's unclear whether it was excavated during the American Revolution, but that is primarily what it is thought to have been. That area does date back to the 1600s. There is a church, taverns, and medical shop, and a few homes there for touristy type things. And there's a lot of history here if you want to check it out. Yorktown, they talk about Yorktown, they talk about the cave, and they talk about the explosions and the road that leads to it. There is a paved little road that leads to Cornwallis Cave. And again, you can go check that out, at least the beginning. No admission price is needed to see the Cornwallis Caves. Regular ghost tours are run at night by a concession. In addition to the Archer House, one can enjoy other historic homes, small hotel, bookstore, variety of restaurants, and a cluster of statues of the French and Continental Army generals who won our independence from Britain. The story is accredited to Deborah Painter, so check that out if you want to hear it in its entirety. So that is today's Radical Rocks. We're going to talk a little bit about the 1800s, English, Irish, and American history as it relates to geology and geological areas that were discovered during these times. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please support our show. Please be a part of our social media and check out our t-shirts or whatever. And if you want to be a member, we are going to make some exclusive content and open up more one-on-one time where I will answer your questions. I've been trying to do it for free right now as I am able to try to see if there's any interest in that. So if you see me live stream, I will be trying to do it in the PMs. Jump on and let's talk. Let's talk about what's going on. Let's talk about rocks. And that's it. That's all. So until next time, remember, rockhounds don't die. We petrify.